Good evening, everybody. It's Mitch here at the Fourth Official. Thanks very much for joining us. And I am joined by the one and only looks of the Fourth Official, our Cammy. Thanks for joining us this evening, mate.
Good to speak to you, mate. How are you?
Not too bad, mate. I mean, we've not had our afternoon completely ruined, have we? So, we take what we can get at this stage of the year.
Hi, it was only half ruined to be fair, but it's better than just being ruined completely.
That's it, mate. I think it's a story that sums up the season all too well. You know that way, we'll hand you a two-goal lead and give you a two-goal head start and see where we go.
I know. It was an interesting one. Obviously, the important game's on Thursday, but it's still an important one to win this game. So, just a bit of a strange one. How many times have I said that this season?
No, mate, I think we've all said it far too many. I mean, heading into the game today against Aberdeen, we had 9 changes to the team on Thursday night, giving us a lineup of Liam Kelly in goals, which deservedly so. Rafa Fernandez, the lesser spotted. Robin Proper at the back, along with young Clinton Enciale and the recall back to the team. Ross McCausland, Bajrami, Connor Barron, who started the game with the armband, Finlay Curtis, Danilo Igamani up top, and again the lesser spotted Oscar Cortez stepping in. On the bench, we had Jack Butland continuing his newfound role on the bench, Cyril Dessers, Mo Diamande, Yanis Hadji, Young Hutton, Young McCallion, John Suter, James Tavernier, and of course young Yefty. So, what did you make of the lineup when it first came out then, Cammy?
I think Kelly, totally agree with what you're saying about him deservedly coming in. I mean, it was always going to happen after his performance on Thursday, but good to see him in the team. Wasn't surprised seeing Ciala coming in. It makes sense if Proper's going to be suspended on Thursday. It made sense to at least give him some game time as well. But I must admit, I wasn't expecting as many changes as there were. I know we've got that game coming up on Thursday, but I was still expecting Suitor to play for example, especially if it's likely to be him and Ciala that's going to be the partnership on Thursday night if Proper's out. I just thought would have made a bit more sense to play the two of them together, just familiarise themselves a bit. And then yeah, I think Oscar Cortez coming in from the cold that was a bit of a surprise. I'm not sure what the thinking is with Cortez. I think there's been a few times where you'd maybe think, right, we can bleed him into the team, but it just seems to be he's in on the starting team sheet. Just out of the cold, so it's a bit of a strange one. I don't think we are managing that situation particularly well, but yeah, bit of a surprise. But it was clearly a team picked with Thursday night in mind.
That's it, mate. I think, don't get me wrong, from a personal point of view, Gary will have told you of my young guns agenda from the start of the season. To see young Finlay Curtis in there, certainly, it brought a tear to the eye a little bit there when I seen him getting his first start. And I think, as you say, the Oscar Cortez situation's it's a wee bit of a head scramble. As we've not seen, he's not played a minute, for weeks, but he's been on the bench for the last, what, 5, 6 games now. Hasn't played a minute yet, comes in today, plays 45 minutes after not touching the ball. And, I get in one respect it was probably a bit of a fitness exercise for him to see, well, where are you? And a little bit, we've spoke about this previously. We're only going to find out about his recovery data by actually playing him and, putting him in. And I don't know if potentially he's been a victim of some of our helter-skelter, hell-raising results that we've had, over the last few weeks where, it's has it been these, Clement used to talk about the perfect circumstances to bring somebody in on? Has that potentially been the case, and has that also been the case as to why Danilo's not had as many minutes as we would maybe like him to have had? But there's only a handful of people that know the answer to it, and they're certainly not working for us at the moment.
No, no, it just I c- I'm not just saying this because it's Oscar Cortez and we don't see him. It just doesn't make any sense to have a player out for that long. And Aberdeen tends to be a difficult game for us. It's a difficult away game for everyone. It's just a strange game to just throw him in. All of a sudden, you like, as you say, he's been on the bench 5 or 6 times. give him 20 minutes, half an hour, build him up. If we've got a game at Ibrox, give him a start then. It just seemed like a very strange one that just all of a sudden we're playing Aberdeen away and he's in the starting 11. And unfortunately that turned out to be the case with his performance.
That's it. I think, don't get me wrong, it was a performance that we had the bit of the good, the bad, and the ugly from Cortez in there as well. I think, we've seen those little flashes of brilliance and probably 80% of a lot of ring rust in there as well from him. He looked like a player who hadn't kicked a ball in anger really for months. If we're being honest, for the majority of this season, we had him for what, 2, 3 games before he broke down. And then we had that very weird half-hour cameo where he looked okay when he went off, and then was not seen again until some weeks later. I think he showed that footballing intelligence is there, and the abilities there with him. But as you say, was today really the game to give him a fitness exercise? You know, as results would suggest, perhaps maybe not. But I don't think he was the worst of the crop today. So we'll get into the action there of obviously during the first half where things were a little bit spicy in the opening in the opening half hour or so. We had some heavy challenges laid in from both teams quite early on. And I don't know about yourself, but once again we sat back and allowed a team to come to us. And I think tactically we need to get so much better than just keep inviting the pressure on and on and on and on at us. Because Aberdeen did play some really, really good football, and realistically, even inside that opening 20 minutes, they had two really good chances inside the opening 20 minutes to make life difficult for us.
Yeah, just got to be ready for the battle. It's always a battle up there when we turn up at Pittodrie, and I think I don't know if it's something we need to look at tactically or whether it's something we need to look at mentally. You're right. We're not imposing ourselves on away games like that. Like playing these teams at home, that's straightforward. We're always going to be on top from minute one. But in terms of putting your foot down, laying your mark in the game right away, it's all too often that we've not done that in the early stages. And okay, we'll eventually work our way into the game like we did today. But over the course of the season, there's far too many drop points, and unfortunately, when you're looking at our title rivals, they don't do that. They take control of games straight away. So I think for next season, that's something that needs to be looked at immediately, as you say.
That's it. It's this constantly. It seems to be anyone can get up for a Thursday night under the big lights. And when you hear that music playing, the goosebumps start flowing. You know, but it's these bread and butter games in the league where it doesn't matter if it's Aberdeen or if it's Ross County or if it's Hearts, Celtic. It doesn't matter who it is. The bread and butter games are the games that we all understand that this season's essentially a wrap. We know domestically it's done, but there's some bloody pride to play for. Give me as a paying fan, and give you, those of us that have been here since we were wee. Show me that you deserve to be there next year, and give me a reason to continue to back you. Show me that it was all Clement's fault and it wasn't you. But we're seeing the same problems again under Barry as we have under Clement, I think.
Yeah, and I think we'll maybe come on to the the discipline side of things, especially with the bookings and the red card as well. Unfortunately, as players who've been here for a fairly long period of time, as well as new players, like I think we were all pretty clear that Philippe Clement was to blame, but he wasn't totally to blame for the performances. So disappointing to see that. And yeah, I think Barry Ferguson's maybe had to give far too many halftime team talks to turn things around. But at the same time, just the mentality was all wrong. I thought we were quite indisciplined as well. One player in particular obviously got sent off later. So yeah, I think the first half is maybe the worst I've seen all season. And I hope that's not too much of an exaggeration. I just thought it was really disappointing. It couldn't have gone worse for us the first half.
No, I think, yeah, no, mate, you've hit the nail on the head perfectly there. I think that was one of these from minute one. of the game, first whistle, half the team looked like they'd left their bodies inside the changing room before they actually got out in the park. And I think, when we get into the crux of the game there, we had Aberdeen inside the first 10 minutes had a really spicy shot at it there, where once again we'd left the door wide open, and I believe it was that Papagay had come in and just dragged a shot wide inside the 10-minute mark. And again, that should have been the wake up call, the shot of coffee into the arm for half of the team. But again, we allowed play to continue, and we allowed, for some reason, we really, really struggled to play against Palversa, the Aberdeen winger. Again, very, very talented lad, but we're not talking about some top class European level player here. No disrespect to him, but that's not where he is in his career right now. But we made him look like we were playing prime Messi at some points. You know, and we very, very nearly, what was that, about 15 minutes into the game there, when Shaden Morris lashed a shot just wide of Liam Kelly's goals. And again, that's inside 20 minutes of the game. We've allowed two clear open chances to Aberdeen.
Yeah, I mean, not much I can really add to that. Just poor performance. It was just a bit of a Frankenstein's monster of a Rangers team with all the players dotted about. But we it's not just Polvara, like you're saying. It just feels like we turned up against Aberdeen and we were showing them far too much respect. It seems like we were showing up, think, as like the smaller team or the weaker team, and that's just not acceptable. No offense to Aberdeen, I know they're playing at home, but there's no way we should just be sitting back and giving Aberdeen all this respect. It should never happen. They're fifth in the table at the end of the day. So disappointing in it. And yeah, that was the story of the whole first half, to be honest.
Absolutely, mate. And then to make matters worse, obviously we get 20 minutes into the game and Rafael Fernandez under what didn't really look like a huge amount of anything really in it. Lay down on the pitch there, and obviously we wish him whatever's happened to him there. We wish him a speedy recovery, but again, he was standing in the sides less than 30 minutes after coming off the park injured. So, of course, on comes Captain Dependable, gets himself stripped off, ready, and into the action on the 20-minute mark. And I'm pretty sure Mr. Tavernier would have fancied an afternoon off himself, after the physical exertions on 33-year-old legs. As somebody with 34-year-old legs, I know for a fact if I'd run Thursday night, you wouldn't be seeing me on Sunday.
Yeah, I think who knows? We can have a discussion around whether it was right to rest Tavernier today or not. I'll probably sit in the fence in that one. But yeah, we were talking before about Rafa Fernandez. I must admit, when I was watching it, it didn't even sort of occur to me that something bad had had happened, really. And I thought it would just be a matter of time before he picked himself back up. But yeah, unfortunately for him, just a snake bitten Ibrox career. He was sort of brought in during an injury crisis. The manager that brought him in was shortly sacked after the games he has played in. It's not been particularly good team performances, and even today, last 20 minutes as well. So it's just one of those things where who knows, there might be a good player, but just at Rangers, it doesn't seem like it's meant to be, unfortunately. So sorry it's panned out that way, but it doesn't seem as if he has a future at the club just due to bad luck and other reasons.
I think, as you say, mate, it's very well summed up there. It's stop start very much like the team, but he's also not had much chance to break in the team. And, as you say, he seemed, yeah, on one hand, he looked like he signalled that he was fine to continue. And then 2 seconds later, the substitutes board was up. So either something's happened medically that the physios have said, nah, just call it a day. But again, as you say, we should, the team that was laid out for me today, call it maybe a bit overbold. That team still should have been. That's a team that should be at least 8 or 9 teams within the SPFL. When you look at the value of the players that were out there and the overall experience, we should be able to go and rest players like Tavernier and say, you're 33-year-old now, you've given us everything for 10 years. The very least we can do is you've played you've played 2 out of 3. Let's just rest you for game 3 and let you. Don't even put you in the squad. Go and sit down in the stands and watch it. And it's fine because these youngsters like Fernandez, who, let's be honest, I mean, he's on a decent whack of money as well, Fernandez. These are players that you should be able to say, all right, it's no disrespect again, but it's Aberdeen away. We should be all right to go and put in a promising young prospect who's been, before moving to France, he was touted by 5 or 6 different teams in various top leagues. There's a pedigree of a player there that you should still be able to turn around and say it's only Aberdeen. Like we're popping him in there, and he'll be fine for an hour. Then, of course, we get to the disaster class, which was we get to the disaster class, which was the opening goal from young Leighton Clarkson of Aberdeen. What do you make of? Should it have? Should we have done better with it, or do you think it was just one of them free kicks?
I think to start with, from what I remember, it was a really stupid free kick. I think it was McCausland. I think that was his first yellow card. I
Was
just
indeed.
remember. I think James McFadden said it in commentary as well. A really stupid free kick, and then um, yeah, it's a decent enough strike. I wouldn't go as far to say it's an error from Liam Kelly. He might say himself he would do better. He gets across and gets a hand to it. So yeah, it's just one of those ones. Maybe he could do better, maybe with a stronger hand, or if he was just that sort of split millisecond quicker jumping up, he might have saved it. But no, I wouldn't put that down as a mistake. Certainly not as serious as the repeated mistakes Jack Butland was making. So I'm not going to be too critical of Liam Kelly. It's a good strike. It's one of them. It's in a well placed, good shot. He gets across. He's just not able to keep it out. So it's one of those ones he could maybe do slightly better. But I'm not going to be too critical of him.
No, neither am I. And as you say, it wasn't even the worst in the series of offences that Ross McCausland had committed up to the point of getting the first yellow. And I think most of us by this point, when we seen McCausland taking the yellow, you thought this is going to go one way or another here, where he's either going to need saved from himself or he's going to take that on the chin. Like he's not a daft wee boy. This is his second season within the first team. You should know better that when you're already having a merry afternoon, but you've already been put in the referee's book, just keep yourself off the referee's radar and don't give him a reason to come looking at you. I think
100%. Yeah.
the free kick, Liam was probably a little bit unfortunate that he just got he got a bit of a fingertip to it, but as you say, I don't see that as a goalkeeping error. I see that more of that's just one of those free kicks. I don't think anybody, including even, Leighton Clarkson, when he hit it, I don't think he actually thought that he was about to pop that into the bin. That way, away and it went. Then, of course, we fast forward 10 minutes later, and of course, the red card appears for young Ross McCausland. And I think both of us, I mean, from myself point of view, Ross McCausland can have no qualms about that red card that was handed to him today.
No, on both counts, both yellow cards were fair ones, and he's only got himself to blame. I think it's good play from the Aberdeen player. He's getting away, and it's just a total lack of discipline. He's not, yeah, okay, he's in a fairly dangerous position, but he's not bearing down on goal. He doesn't look like he's going to create a goal scoring opportunity. It's just a total lack of discipline, and you're right. With if Finlay Curtis was to do that, he's sort of like fresh into the first team. You could maybe put that down to, he's kind of a new kid in the block, still learning sort of professional ropes. But Ross McCausland's played 2 seasons now. That is just a really stupid mistake from someone who's already on a yellow card. He's trying to win the ball. Even if he does win the ball, we're not really getting that much of a benefit. If he does win the ball anyway, just a real lack of discipline, and it's something you'd expect from someone who's making their first team debut, never mind someone who's already been in the team for 2 years. So I was really disappointed about that because we were already a goal down and then we're a man down as well at a difficult place. So I was really disappointed with that.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And as you say, I think as well, a lot of us forget. I, d- I do, I was talking about this earlier on, and I was trying to weigh up how McCausland got to where he got to today, and I think some of it's a mixture of on Barry and on Clement. I think where he's almost been a victim of Tierney being so good this season that he's found minutes hard to come by, and you think to yourself, is this a player that's been guilty of? He's tried to do too much of everything today to try and stake a claim for a jersey and claim for more minutes. And in the process, he's put too much pressure on himself and he's made a rip roaring balloon of it, for want of a better expression. And, I get that Barry spoke about passion, desire, character, everything else. Sometimes there's a time where you have to pull back on the passion a little bit and pull back on the character and say, let somebody else put that character building tackle in after you've already taken the yellow. Where and for a boy who's already a full internationalist, it was a pretty stupid thing to do to go in there. As you say, there was no need for that tackle to go in there as it did. And then, of course, fast forward a few moments later, Aberdeen, of course, get their second through some good work from Shaden Morris, who unfortunately sent young Finlay Curtis for a hot dog as he slid in a lovely cross there to Papa Gay, who punished us for a wee bit of bang average defending. What's your take on the overall defending for that goal?
I thought, yeah, really, really poor, and obviously with the caveat that we're a man down. But yeah, I think I don't want to get on Finlay Curtis's back too much. Hopefully, he'll learn from that because yeah, it's a good, decent bit of skill from Shade Morris, and he gets into a decent position. But it just looks like um, Gay. He's just got all the time in the world. He just drops back slightly, and he's in all this space, picks his spot and puts it away. I thought that was really disappointing. It wasn't particularly sort of a great bit of strikers play from Gay or particularly good movement. It just seemed very easy, just drop back, get into position, and he's got all the space in the world. So I was pretty disappointed with Proper maybe for not seeing that, or maybe even the midfield not getting back as well. But just a pretty simple goal, bit of skill on the right hand side, goes into their centre of box. The Gay puts it away. It was just a bread and butter goal. And that one sort of annoyed me a lot more than the first. The first is a bit of quality, but the second one, that's just a pretty elementary goal. And we should have done a lot better in terms of picking men up or tracking back as well. So that just comes down to sort of attitude and effort. So that's the most disappointing thing of all.
I think, as you say as well, mate, it's a goal that we've seen us concede far too many times already this season. I think the only thing that really stuck for me and it irritated me more than anything was Robin Proper trying to blame young Enciala for the goal. And you're like, and quite clearly James Tavernier shouting right back at Robin Proper, no, that was your man. You've missed your man again. Don't blame the young 20-year-old centre back who's, let's be honest, the only one in the back line today that didn't put a foot wrong throughout the game.
Yeah.
Showed a lovely range of passes. As you say, Finlay Curtis was asked to play in a very unfamiliar kind of left wing back role today. Like, mistakes like that are going to happen, and unfortunately, when you're playing youngsters like that, we need them to make mistakes like that to say, okay, you've made the mistake today. We live, we learn, we try again tomorrow. We don't do it again. And it also gives us, I think Curtis showed his attacking prowess a few moments later where rightly the ball was adjudged to be out of the field of play, but the ingenuity from Curtis was cracking, obviously, not to give up on that ball to cut it back into Aggie, who, thought he'd banged in a level, wanted to pull us back, to 2-1 just before half time. But again, I think that was another one where VAR kind of comes under the spotlight for me a wee bit, where you're like, it didn't need to take as long as it took to tell us that the ball went out.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I think when all that was going on, obviously the first one, the first thing that I thought of was obviously I think it was the goal that Celtic scored that was chopped off against Hibs, and obviously there was the big sort of circus around that. It
Hoo-ha.
does seem to be that the the referee on the pitch can makes a decision, and then VAR needs to find evidence to actually overturn that decision. Didn't seem as if it did look out. I think the right decision was made for what it's worth, but didn't seem as if there was like conclusive evidence to turn that over. But yeah, as you say, like completely agree with what you're saying about Curtis. Good to see that bit of sort of old fashioned play getting to the byline. Maybe we could have a bit more of that. Because we almost got a goal there, just a couple of millimeters away from being in. So good play from him. But yeah, it's just one of those ones where VAR needs to actually have clear proof that there's been a mistake to overturn it, and that's what happens. If the linesman gave it as a goal, then it probably would have been given as a goal because there maybe wasn't enough evidence to overturn it either way. So that's just how it goes.
I will say, from the officiating standpoint today, I think overall the full team got pretty much everything right. I don't think, as always, there's going to be the odd niggly, we could have been given this as a foul or that could have went against us, etc. But the major ones of, who got a card when they were deserved to get a card and stuff, I think they got right. And I will say both linesmen flagged really, really quickly to suggest the ball was out, with that, just before. So of course that brings us to the tail of half time, and as often the case, Barry has to send for the men to come off the bench. This time with Mo Diamande and Yefte coming in place of Danilo and Oscar Cortez. I don't think that was any great shock to see two players who haven't seen much minutes come off at half time either, and especially knowing that Mo Diamande had to get some minutes into his legs obviously before Thursday as well. Um, bit of a high paced start to the second half, obviously, with some excellent work. I have to say, obviously, again from Finlay Curtis there, where he showed that passion, hunger, desire to get the ball. He played a lovely ball through on to Hamza Gamani, obviously for Iggy to do what Iggy does. He's taken on a full back line by himself and found the bottom of the net. What a special player we have in our hands there.
He's the one player in our team that can do that. I just think he's just got such a good sense of where an opponent is whenever he's got the ball, whether he's in front of him or behind him. Because I think when you look at it, he's getting his body in the right place, and I think there's a part where he's not actually touching the ball. It's just like he's just dummying it. He takes off to the left, great finish as well. Really excited about what he can do. I know he's not been in sort of great form recently, but I think that was just always going to happen with a young player like that. I think if you're looking at this as his first season, I've seen enough to buy into to all the hype. I think just a brilliant finish. There's nobody else I would have wanted running onto that ball over the top other than him, because it's just a bit of skill. The Aberdeen defenders are really confused. Lovely finish, and we get back into the game straight away just from a moment of magic, and that's what he can do. He'll do it again.
I think as well, what it done is it's really, really helped lay out the stall for the second half for us as well. Of okay, we're a man down, we're 2 goals down, but we're here. And quite clearly by the body language of a couple of the players when they returned to the pitch, I think a few rockets or a few hair dryers in the Alex Ferguson era were lobbed around during the course of half time. But as you say, Barry shouldn't have to keep having to keep having these massive rallying cries to the team at half time when it's much easier to go in there and have an easier half time talk when you've not put yourself in the mess in the first place. But I think again, Agamani's done what Agamani does there. He's sent their back line for toast. He is that. I think probably the first striker since Alfie's left that does have that. He'll create something out of nothing if you give him a minute. But I think also the thing with Agamani is, as you say, he's a young player. He's going to have these hot and cold patches throughout his career and that's where I think, and Gary laughs as he calls me the chairman of the Cyril Desters Appreciation Club, but Sometimes it's a hard club to be in, but this is why you need to have that experienced striker to take the load off and where you go, right, son, you're not having the greatest run of games right now, but let me as the player that's 7 years your senior, I'll take it on my shoulders. I'll be the guy that misses a few chances and nobody puts the spotlight on you. I'll take the bullets that you should be taking for, in fans' eyes, underperforming when really he's just a young player trying to find his feet.
No, so certainly see what happens next season. I do think, I do like Dessers, but I think we've just maybe been a bit unlucky. I think like Igamani's form and Dessers' form in terms of their good form is maybe like overlapped slightly. I think there's been spells in the season when they're both out of form and we're sort of struggling for goals as a result of that. But Igamani, as far as I'm concerned, is really going to get better. This is first season in a new country. I'm really excited to see what Europe for the rest of this season holds, and also next season as well. Because I'd love to keep him. I think we'd maybe be selling a bit too quickly if we were to cash in on him just now. So yeah, hopefully that's a sign of things to come.
I think, as always, it comes down to the pound, shilling, and pence, and obviously what the cold brass tacks looks like. We've been guilty maybe in the past of not selling players when the time was right, and I think, I think obviously there's money men and the powers that be that they know what the price is. But we've paid reportedly around about £2 million for Hamza. If we're being honest, there anything north of 12, £13 million, that's phenomenal business. And if somebody walked in and said, "I tell you what, like here's an opportunity to add 1,000% profit to a player that you've just bought," you know, would we'd be screaming if we didn't do it.
Yeah, I completely agree. So let's just see what happens. I'll certainly enjoy him whilst he's still at the club, because that was just a brilliant bit of magic, and it just hauled us back into the game because we looked absolutely dead and buried. So just that moment of magic, you've always got a chance when you've got a player that can do that.
That's exactly it, mate. So on went the second half. A few more changes made with the likes of Yanis Hadji coming on. Um, Yanis bringing on what Yanis does, and I think one of the biggest things that Yanis Hadji brings, I think, to the team is that he is a natural two-footer. He's just equally as good on both balls. So being a man down, I think, really allows for somebody like him to come in and say, okay, well, there's a hole over here and there's a hole over here. He can almost come in there and, pardon the phrase there, but he can come in and firefight a little bit there, and say, well, this is what we need. And, I think those changes really put us back on a bit more of a firmer foot again, brought us back into the game and brought us looking lively. And of course, old habits nearly died hard on the 87th minute, where we all thought Kevin Nisbet had put Aberdeen 3-1 ahead with what looked like a cracking strike, only for VAR to step in rightfully and show the ball did in fact hit the hand. Never thought I'd see these Masonic referees giving us decisions or anything like that, but you know, I will say it was a well taken goal minus the handball.
Yeah, I think a bit of a weird day for Kevin Nisbet. I think before that looked like he couldn't hit a barn door because I think he missed two or three good chances before that, and then it's ironic that the one he does put away is a handball, probably slightly harsh, but yeah, if it's one of those ones by the letter of the law, it's a handball. So hard lines to him, but he can only blame himself because he had plenty of other chances before that, and he missed them. So that's just how it goes. And yeah, I think that just sort of sums Aberdeen up. I think we were really there for the taking after 10 men, and I don't think they really went for it. And they probably should have done, but anyway, that's their problem, not ours.
Exactly, mate. And then, of course, obviously, we get into what I like to refer to now as Rangers time. We're in our fact, the board goes up, showing us 5 minutes there. Dessers is on there, galloping like a horse there, running in the national. It was so unlucky with with the initial strike that hit off the post. But I will say again, some really really neat footwork and an excellent. I've been very very critical of Yefty's delivery all season, but that ball through to Yanis Hadji was so perfectly played to him. And then, of course, Yanis Hadji does what Yanis Hadji off peak likes to do and rasped one in there. Broke hearts. You heard the sound of hearts breaking across the Highlands there. As Yanis Hadji came in there and silenced the lambs in the last minute.
I know you're sort of president of the Dessers fan club, so answer this honestly. See, when Dessers was running through, like, what did you think was going to happen? Did you think he was going to score?
Yes, and the
Yeah,
reason for it is it's one of these. Do you know? There's a weird psychology to Dessers that see once you understand the psychology of the man, it makes it so much easier to forgive some of the wild things that he does. See when he's in a position like that where he's not given time to think, that's when he
yeah,
excels. You give Dessers time to think, and that's when he make a meal of it. If you hit Dessers with a ball in between two defenders and a keeper running out at him, Dessers will dink it in the back of the net because he knows he's got one touch in the net. When you let him think, I've got to, I've got to beat a man, I've got to beat another man, and then I've got to beat the keeper, and I've probably got plenty of time and legs to do it. That's when he's either going to hit the post, he's going to sky it, or it's going to end up in the Clyde because he overthinks what he's going to do next.
yeah. I mean, if someone can put it in the Clyde from Aberdeen, it's probably Cyril Dessers. But it's I don't want to be too critical of him. Like he should score absolutely, but it's the right finish. I've been critical of his shot selection, but this time he does pick the right finish. It just happens to hit the post. The other thing I was really pleased with is when it hits the post and it comes back out, like our players were right on it straight away. We didn't freeze or anything like that. We collected the ball straight away. We got it to Hadji. He was in a dangerous position. Absolutely brilliant strike. We've seen that before from him, but just a brilliant piece of football from him. And yeah, we get the draw. It was probably, can maybe say it's undeserved, but equally, you know, others could say it is deserved because we played a lot of the match with 10 men. We kept ourselves in the game. And it's yeah, a brilliant piece of quality at the end. And they totally threw it away, but we took advantage of that just with two really good pieces of quality. So yeah, not pleased overall, but I do admire the sort of the mentality and the piece of quality to get us back into the match.
That's exactly it, mate. As the old expression goes, that's all she wrote for the afternoon. I think, Barry's bipolar bears. We march on to Thursday. We will have full match, full post-match coverage here. Obviously on Thursday night or Friday morning, just depending. And as always, mate, it's an adventure.
I think both of us could talk all day long about what could maybe happen. Nothing's outrageous anymore when it comes to Rangers, so it's been a wacky ride, and hopefully it goes on a bit longer and the season's still alive after Thursday night. So we'll see what happens.
That's it, mate. Well, on that cheery note, thank you very much for joining me, and we will catch up with everybody on Thursday. Don't forget to subscribe to Patreon and give the YouTube channel a subscribe and like while you're there. And that has very much been from myself, Mitch, here at the Fourth Official, and my wonderful co-host Cammy for today. Thank you all for joining.